In this video, I want to tell you about setting goals the wrong way. Now, I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive, but please bear with me for a moment. You see, most people go about setting goals the wrong way. Then they get frustrated and disappointed when they don't achieve them. They feel like they're worthless failures when they've really fallen into one of the 4 goal-setting traps. And I'm going to explain what they are in this video. Okay, let's look at trap number 1, and I suppose this is the most common trap that people fall into, and that is not setting specific goals. If you don't know what you want, how will you know when you've got it? It just stands to reason, really, but a lot of people don't take that into account. For example, sometimes if you ask people what they want, they'll say they want to be successful. But successful at what? Do you want to be successful in business? Do you want to be successful in sports? You want to be successful with the opposite sex? And the same goes for other abstract wants, such as I want to be famous, or I want to be rich, or I want to be happy. Well, what constitutes successful, stroke famous, stroke rich, stroke happy? How will you know when you've got it? What are your terms of reference? So you need to be specific about what it is that you want, or at least have some idea. Then you can narrow it down to formulate a specific goal that you can work towards. And sometimes it's better to break large goals down into smaller ones. And that makes them very easy to achieve. For example, let's say your goal is to build a brick wall. Well, the first goal that you're going to need to do is to calculate how many bricks you're going to need. Then you're going to need to prepare the ground. That's your next goal. And then you might need to order the bricks from a builder's merchant and wait for them to arrive, and you can be preparing the ground while they're on their way. Then you're going to need to get in all the tools and supplies that you need. Then you're going to need to get all the mortar and cement to join the bricks together. Then you're going to have to start laying the first course of bricks, or laying the foundation and then the first course of bricks. And then you're going to have to build up each layer of bricks so that you have a nice, strong, straight wall. And so each time you do one task, that is a goal that you're achieving. So you're achieving lots of little goals along the way to achieving your main goal of building the brick wall. Okay, trap number 2 is being rigid and unrealistic. Saying something like, I'm going to make $1 million by this time next week, starting from scratch today, is totally unrealistic. Whereas saying something like, I'm going to make $100 by this time next month, starting from scratch today, is much more doable. There's nothing wrong with having the ultimate goal of making $1 million. Just bear in mind that it will probably take you many years to achieve. But if you set an unrealistic goal to begin with and you fail to achieve it, you're going to get disheartened and you're going to give up, and then you'll never achieve the goal that you want. You'll never achieve the main goal that you want. Likewise, having the goal of living in a particular house is never going to be achieved if the current owners don't want to sell it or they plan on tearing it down. But having the goal of living in a certain neighborhood or town is much more realistic. Okay, trap number 3 is having too tight a timescale, or even worse, not having a timescale at all. And while it's a good idea to set some sort of deadline to spur you on to success and to discourage procrastination, Your timeline or deadline should be realistic and achievable. And like I was saying earlier, if you set yourself the goal of making $1 million by this time next week, that is a totally unrealistic timeline. Whereas if you set yourself the goal of making $100 by this time next month, that's much more achievable. That's a much more realistic timeline, a much more realistic deadline. But you should have some sort of deadline. Otherwise, you'll just put things off until the time is right. And so many people do this. They say, when the time is right, I'll do this. Or when such and such happens, I'll do this. Or I'll do whatever it is the goal is someday. Well, remember, someday equals never. So if you don't have some sort of a deadline in mind, then you're just going to simply put it off and put it off and put it off, and you're never going to actually do it. All right, finally, trap number 4 is not sticking with it. And when you're trying to achieve your goals, there will be setbacks along the way. It's just a fact of life. Nothing ever goes 100% smoothly. There's going to be things that are going to happen that you haven't factored in because you didn't know about, that you're going to have to deal with. And it's just, it just happens. It's just the way life is. And sometimes totally unexpected things will happen, completely out of the blue, and they'll delay your progress, or they're going to force you to deviate from what you want. So you might have to stop working towards your goal, go off at a tangent and do something else first, and then come back to it. But as long as you keep your goal in mind and you keep at it, then you should achieve it in the long run. And of course, that's the most important thing, is that you do actually achieve your goal. And once you've achieved one goal, it's easy to then set yourself another goal and move on to that, and another one, and another one, and another one, and so on, all down the line. So there you go, the traps that you should really avoid falling into so that you don't set your goals the wrong way.